Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sir Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Howdy.
Greetings, Bruce.
And Sam Williams.
How are we doing?
We still need to drop the sir. I keep mentioning this every time.
I'm not interested in Sir Bruce Fitzpatrick. I want an answer as to why you're sat on the living room floor.
Yeah, mate.
Is this like a new woke look we're going for?
Yeah. I want to combine podding and some mobility / yoga into one because, I'm all about bundling.
So we're getting Zen on this one.
Opening up the internal rotator cuffs. Is that what you're doing?
Rotator cuffs are in your shoulders, but hip flexors would be more apt. But
there we go.
Lockdown living. You have to try and make it exciting, I guess, in some way.
So much for my sports biomechanics degree. There we go.
You dropped something there, Tom. Sorry, just want to get that before we carry on.
I don't know where rotator cuffs are. As always, guys, you can get in touch with us on @CookieJarGolf on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube,
and Clubhouse.
What is this?
What is Clubhouse? What is Clubhouse?
Right. So Clubhouse. I only got onto this last week. It's a
short history,
media,
please, Sam.
Potted history. It's a new social media thing that seems to be taking the world by storm. It is it's currently in beta. It's invite only. So if someone sends you an invite link, you can register. It's iOS only. It's weird. It's like an Instagram, but purely audio. So people just jump on and have these room discussions. I've not used it much, but we are on there. And we have 17 followers on there, so we're going to hop across and.
Christ, setting the world alight.
I can't actually say there's any. I can't say there's any discernible benefit for anyone joining it because we've not actually done anything on there yet. But that was just a segue into the world of social media. Anyway, sorry.
Can we like live pod on it or something?
We possibly could, yeah. Like I think. It's one of those things you want to stay abreast of what's going on in the world of golf. And like to be fair, I've seen people like me and my golf on there, and some other guys have some pretty reasonable discussions, and it's interesting actually. But
Tom and I aren't sort of interesting enough to have been invited yet. So
no,
maybe one day we can get the whole Cookie Jar team on there. But for now,
it'll filter through the organisational layers in good time, Bruce. Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to get in the way of Tom's naked commercialism advertisements. You want to do a few things for our sponsors, Tom?
Yeah, as always, guys, you can check us out on YouTube. There is currently a burning inferno going on YouTube because Kill Spindy, the final film of our tour, is just being released. And I think it's been a successful film series. We had fun filming it. It's the last one.
Kind of sad. It's actually, really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed watching them, making them, and jokes aside, hearing
making them.
It's tough. Did you enjoy that process, Sam?
Yeah, I did actually, because I sit in the luxurious position sitting behind you.
What goes into like sort of sound designing and color grading these, Sam? Like when you get what software do you use? Do you want to just maybe talk to some budding videographers who follow our stuff?
So it's quite simple. It's Final Cut Pro. The key thing is you get the audio right. So you just got to nail the narration, stitch that in some music, layer over some snazzy B-roll, and then I think Mills does a bit of color grading and sound design over the top. When you strip it back to its constituent parts, it's not actually that hard.
As I keep hearing, I could do that. Just give me a drone. I could do that.
Anyway, should we move on to the week's affairs?
Yeah. Should we start with the European Tour, chaps? That sound about right? Congratulations to Paul Casey. Great performance.
Looked clinical, didn't it?
Mr. Colgate himself, yeah. God, that smile just gets brighter every time you see it, doesn't it? But
he's got forearms like Thor, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know. We're going on a big man crush Monday here for Paul Casey, but I think it's warranted. I mean, I think maybe he rubs some people up the wrong way. He maybe seems a little smarmy, but I actually think he's just great character, like awesome ball striker, and he's just been a sort of stalwart of the European kind of. I don't want to say Ryder Cup team because obviously he's not played loads because he's been out in America, but yeah, he's just been a fantastic like world class player for decades now, hasn't he?
Yeah. Did you see him doing his like laddie duty on the 18th on the final round, where like he's like Bob Mack couldn't tee up on the right hand side of the tee box because he was left-handed, and there's like there was a sprinkler head in the way where his stance would be, and he's like, "No, this isn't right. No, this is just not fair. You should do something about this. Call the referee over."
It's all right when
comes
you're about
over.
6 shots clear, isn't it? Really, I suppose the slightly different optic at that point. Like, come on, just go off the ladies if you want, Bob. Honestly, no qualms here, young man. But interestingly, I'm looking at the roundup numbers on it. This puts in context how well he's hit it all week. Average distance off the tee 313, driving accuracy 80%, fairways hit. Now, golf's
It didn't look like an open course, did it? Either. Just to add that as a massive caveat, it looked quite tight in places.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite Torrey Pines tight. I mean, we'll come on to that no doubt in a bit, but like golf is a significantly easier game when you're 313 up the gut on near enough every 2 and 3 shot hole. So he played great. I must admit, I was a little bit, I was kind of a bit gutted, if I'm honest, with Bob Mack, because the more I watch of him, I think he's a really, really good fun golfer to watch. He's really, really entertaining. He's there's lots of kind of like wild shots off the tee. He's fantastic shaping of the ball, really good recovery player. And like Saturday, watching him start like par, birdie, bogey, double, eagle, birdie, it's all going on and it's great fun. And then he got himself into pretty good space, I thought, and he got absolutely cheated on the 8th by, I mean, it was essentially dead center of the cup and it's somehow stayed out.
For our listeners that don't know what happened on the 8th, elaborate.
So he's got, it wasn't particularly long. It's sort of a 6-footer for par. It's going in at no particular speed. And I mean, you're talking like a mil off center. Like there's no way the ball should stay out of the hole. And it's one of those freak things. It's kind of hit the sort of backboard and somehow come back out. But I mean, you can tell a putt that's going to drop and you can tell a putt that's going in with too much heat. And it definitely wasn't the latter. And then, I don't know, maybe he just got a bit rattled, but he then went on and I think 3-putt the next 4 out of 5 greens. But I mean, everyone said they rolled nice, but they looked absolutely horrific, didn't they? There was chunks of turf just like randomly strewn across them where they've obviously had to do a 11th hour repair job on it.
They looked dreadful from the, they looked dreadful on TV. And I guess you can't really blame them, seeing as Dubai and the Dubai Desert Classic in particular are like one of the standout events. Not quite at their best, but Dubai always do a great job of getting them ready for next year. And it's just like, is someone gonna give the honest take and say these things look dreadful? But obviously they're reluctant to do that, which is perhaps understandable.
They weren't a good color, were they? It's rare you see blue greens.
They needed color grading. If something needs color grading, those greens need color grading.
Yeah.
But it was a good event.
Bit of a victory lap, really, in the end for Casey, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
I mean, he shot 2 under and won by 5, did he?
Yeah.
Everyone seemed to crumble around, didn't they? I think another little shout out, Laurie Cantor, another standout week again.
T4, strong. For a guy that's not done tons like previous years, he's put in a couple of really good performances, and I don't think he's going to need a huge amount more before he's been knocking on the door, is it? He's been playing really well.
Well, I actually started reading up a little bit about him. Didn't even start playing until he was 14. Used to play really high level tennis. So I played against Andy Murray, and then
really?
Yeah, but it seems to be moving in the right direction. I mean, they're 2 huge events, and he's outside the world top 100. So there's a bit of movement there, isn't there? And I thought there was some victory in there for Bob Mack, nonetheless. I don't want to. This isn't a pod just about Bob Mack, but he's in that kind of interesting position. No, he is though, isn't he? He's like, I think that secures. Casey's got to be ripe for a Ryder Cup pick now, if not got it already. Bob Mack's, that gets him inside the world top 50 still. It would have been a shame.
Yeah, he's got a Masters appearance now locked up, I think, for April.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's still a big win. I think it puts him into about 45th or something in the world. So
Bob Mack now. And Casey's moved up to 16th. So
wow. That's incredible.
So you think he's pretty, he's pretty shoo-in for European, the 16th Casey now. You say he'd be a shoo-in at this point, wouldn't you?
Particularly considering he's in the twilight of his career, to use Nick Doherty's expression, having written another golfer off the second week running. But to be fair, Casey's about 44, isn't he, I think, or 42 or something. He's that's pretty solid going from Casey to be back up at those levels. But then,
Well, he was
you know, what do you expect?
27th.
The guy's playing great golf.
He's 27th. He's gone up 16th, 11 places. So he was never like really far down, was he? I don't think he was ever. The reason he's not played many European tours is not because the guy isn't good. It's because he's basically never played any European Tour events.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Porsche Open a couple of years ago, didn't he? Porsche European Open. And I think he's just had a very, very good last sort of 2-3 years. I remember he won the Valspar and held off Tiger when Tiger was making his comeback, and then I guess was kind of looked to as a little bit of a leader in the Ryder Cup in 2018. And of course, you know, probably would have won the PGA if Morikawa hadn't have absolutely gone ape shit on the last few holes at Harding Park and turbocharged it. So yeah,
it cost me a fortune as well.
I think I think he'd be a standout pick for the Ryder Cup if recent form's anything to go by.
A good event, and they're off to Saudi next week. And then with all of that going on, it was somewhat overshadowed, I think, then with
hang on, but Saudi, just before we move on with the overshadowing, the Saudi next week, Sam and I were chatting pre-pod, and the winner of the Saudi last year was Graham McDowell, and poor old Graham McDowell had a torrid time of it in Dubai. Didn't make the cut. It was not good.
I don't think that's looking like a Ryder Cup pick at the moment, does it? But
no, but that was one of our first pods. Do you remember?
Well, Saudi, yeah, it was. I think it was our second one. But Saudi seems to attract a seriously good global reach. I don't even know why.
I can't think why.
No, you know, Finau, Justin Thomas is playing in it. I mean, it really is a collection of some of the best players in the world. I'm racking my brains as to why that would be, but
no, I can't work it out.
Oh, anyway, maybe some of our...
We'll have to research it and come back to you on that one next week.
Maybe one of our listeners can enlighten us.
And of course, as you were about to say before I rudely interrupted you, it was kind of overshadowed by what happened over on Torrey Pines, which, let's do this in stages. What do we think about the course? I mean, it's probably mentioned every time anybody talks about Torrey Pines.
It looked hard, but it looked desperately boring.
North and south, are we talking? Because there's two courses they play across, and obviously the south is the tougher venue.
The south is the marquee one, isn't it?
Yeah, the US Open venue, yeah. Although it looked tight, there's a lot of like holes that run next to one another, aren't there? So, you know, I remember seeing a few people, McIlroy included, hitting some quick hooks off that first hole and still being able to get to the green because it's quite, you know, I think there's another hole that runs adjacent to it and you're maybe not that out of shape. It's probably just the rough that makes it brutally difficult. And of course, there was a lot of chat about Hovland's 65 being the equivalent of a 58 or something because of how difficult the conditions were. I don't think, like, I know I'm probably going to anger a lot of course architecture buffs at the moment. I actually don't think it looked that bad. Like, it's supposed to be a very nice part of the world, and obviously there's pretty dramatic views. There are a lot of holes that run, next to one another, in alongside one another. But I mean, I'd still go. I'll put it out there. I'd still go and play it if I got the invite.
Bro Kenzie would spit his tea out at that, Bruce. You need to wash your mouth out with soap and water. I'm not been associated with this anti-woke culture, but great views. But when you watch it on TV, it just looks like an enormous sea of green. The one thing I will say, just in context of the tournament, whenever you got an aerial on the hole, the fairways were almost always half the width of the greens. Like, they were stupidly narrow. So you just saw I don't think it's that entertaining watching them just gouge out of rough repeatedly. Like, there was a crazy amount of greens missed. I mean, I'll kind of give you another little nugget of numbers here, but so Patrick Reed was tied 63rd for the week in greens in regulation. He was
awful, wasn't he? Something missed 27, missed 28 greens.
Almost no one has won a tournament been that far off in terms of long game tee to green. I mean, greens in reg is one of the truest stats of a person's performance. So to be 63rd, probably one shows you how good the guy's short game is.
Let me hazard a guess. Was he topping strokes gained around the greens?
Yeah, he was by a margin.
Yeah, by a country mile.
but okay, I'd go back on you just not to be too, not to be semantic, if that's even the right use. When you talk about greens,
pedantic would have been better.
Yeah, that's of course. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. All right, mate. Okay, we're gonna edit that out. Words
we're
have
not.
failed me. Yeah, not to be too pedantic, but greens in regulation versus proximity to the hole. Those are slightly different measures. So I'm not actually sure. I think there are plenty of people in the past who've hit load of greens in regulation and not finished particularly close to the top of the leaderboard. But, if Reed's hitting a lot of shots close to the flags and then missing a bunch of greens, that's not as damaging to his score, for example, as someone who's hitting fractionally more greens in reg, but not really close enough to be converting those into birdie chances.
You're being very semantic here. Let's not. Let's not go on that.
Pedantic, for God's sake, come on. Look, we're getting slightly trapped down a rabbit hole because I think there's some more key business to attend to on the Reed front than that. But I mean, suffice to say, the guy has got a world-class short game. He's, I think everyone looked like they were having a pretty torrid time. It looked pretty difficult. God knows what they're going to do with the US Open week. But I did think I think it left a pretty bad taste in a lot of people's mouths watching it. And I think when you watch it back on tape, I'd be interested to get your guys' takes.
Yeah, what's your take on it first, Sam? Go on. You've raised it. You've lifted the lid on Pandora's box.
I think the problem is it's just such a grey area as to whether he has or hasn't, bent the rules. I think there's a cloud of doubt over the way he acted and the nature of the fact the way he got a rules official in to kind of come and look at it at 11th hour. Meanwhile, he'd been sort of crouched over the ball for the best part of 15 minutes. Like my knees would have been killing if that was me. And the guy's got form, like he's got really bad form. Look at that tournament in the Bahamas with the sand. So I think it's one of those things, just say, I think it's one of those things where you look at it in the context of who's doing it and it just didn't sit right with a lot of people. Now, you can probably dissect it at a granular level and say, was it cheating? Yes or no? And I don't think that's the debate. It left a sort of cloud of doubt, I think, over the whole thing.
Okay. So let's address a couple of those points. First of all, let's pick someone who's fundamentally different of personality. So let's pick a Tony Finau. If Tony Finau had done exactly the same thing, would we even be talking about it?
Why wouldn't you pick Rory McIlroy? Because he did the exact same thing.
Well, we'll get onto that in a moment. But
isn't that the analogy that's most appropriate there, though?
Okay.
I mean, it literally happened at the same event, a day apart. Yeah.
If it was somebody else, would we be talking about it? Because we're not talking about Rory, are we? If Rory had won, would we talk about him? I don't know. So
that would be yeah. And I think I agree with you broadly on that, Mills. I think, look, fundamentally, without wanting to simplify it too much, the issue is that Reed has picked up and placed his ball, believing it to be embedded or plugged, whatever you want to call it, without first consulting a referee or an official. That's the crux of the matter, is that he's not first consulted an official before he's taken relief. Because, what was it? The following day, McIlroy's done the same thing. He's also taken relief, believing it to have been embedded or plugged.
Same day.
Okay, same day. Right. And so this idea, it just seemed like there was some really bad arguments flying around on social media, like people saying, yeah, well, Rory's okay to do it because he's got an impeccable record. And, he's shown himself on numerous previous occasions to be, someone who conducts himself with absolute integrity and has the utmost respect for, higher bodies and officials, whatever.
That's not saying fair, that buys him immunity, though, mate. So no one's saying that gives Rory immunity, and the circumstances around the Rory thing are totally different. People are. No, because Rory's asked for assistance immediately before the whole situation got going.
Rory just picked up. He didn't even speak to an official.
He didn't even speak to an official at any point.
With his partner, though, with his partner, who was
down the fairway. He's like, the only thing he shouted was, "Is it nearest place or a club length?"
Mm.
That's the only thing he said. He said, this ball is embedded. And he shouted up to his partner, who was about 30 yards down the fairway, and said, is it nearest place or is it club length? And the partner shouted back, club length, and he just did it. So
totally the same. I mean, if anything, Reed, I know it was perhaps slightly a kind of cursory approach to a rules official after he's actually moved the ball, but he did approach an official later on, whereas McIlroy didn't at any stage. And they kind of said after, yeah, both players acted within the rules.
Now, I've got a few points that I just want to pick up on this. I categorically don't believe that Reed's ball was plugged, because if you watch the video, it bounces up in the air and forward. I've never seen a ball plugged from 2 feet.
Okay,
It just doesn't happen. That's
again,
my
though,
opinion. But that's my opinion.
But that's where the viewer, and particularly the commentators on CBS, have just had a field day with it, because they've got a close-up image of it. They've got video evidence that Patrick Reed has absolutely no idea what's happened. He's hit this thing from hundreds of yards away and can't see the fact the ball's bounced.
But that's the point, I think, Bruce. They didn't have a field day. They kind of gave him a pass on it. Everyone's given him a pass that are in the, inside the ropes world. Everyone's had he's had a complete pass on this. Golf Channel,
really?
CBS,
I thought Jim Nantz came out just sort of, with some strongly worded critique.
There's a few of them, but on the whole, even like, the rules guys down there checking the hole with him, like how the hell can he check the hole when the ball's already been picked up? All of these things. And then they've given him a complete kind of pass on the whole event. That was the weird thing, I think. Whilst I know what you mean, Bruce, like there's no empirical evidence. So it's like the innocent till proven guilty thing, isn't it? And there's no empirical evidence to say that. But at the same rate, it was a very bizarrely conducted incident. And then he came away from it officially with the absolutely nothing to see here, guys. He's handled that absolutely perfectly. Meanwhile, all the millions of viewers are sat there going, this just looks really, really odd.
But he's not got the benefit of what we've seen, has he? He's hit this thing and he's walked up to it and thought, well, that's embedded. Now, look, I will preface this by saying, I'm not a Patrick Reed fan. I don't take any pleasure in seeing him win. I just find even the way he conducts himself in interviews to just be pretty offbeat, and he's not affable at all. But yeah, it all have to be equal before the law. So whether it's McIlroy or Reed, you have to.
It's the law student. Here he is.
You have to. Can you tell I'm studying law at the moment? You have to treat him equally. And added to which, here's another one that hasn't been talked about. In an era where we're becoming, quite rightly so, concerned about the pace of play and the sort of standards that people are setting, the idea that you need to call referees over for every decision that a player makes, that's going to have a huge impact on pace of play. So, you kind of got to pick and choose your battles. And I just think on this one, if it wasn't Reed, I don't know. I'm pretty confident that we wouldn't have seen the outrage on Twitter that we have.
So this is where I was going to go with this is, the game revolves around this idea that it's self-policed, and that you cheat yourself, but it's self-policed, and you call penalties on yourself, and that's what the whole ethos of golf is about. If that truly is what golf is about, and Patrick Reed believes he knows the rules, then surely he's completely entitled just to pick up his ball and drop it. If he believes he knows the rules, and that's what he should do. I'm with you, Bruce, in a way that if that is the rule, don't call an official and just get on and do it, drop it, move on.
Yeah,
I happen to not believe that it was embedded, but if he's saying it's embedded, it's a game of integrity, and then just crack on. He hasn't.
Why that's the point then? Why would you call the rules official then at that point? So these aren't subjective things. I've never gone up to a ball of mine and been like, is it plugged? Is it not? I'm really not sure. So I'll pick the ball up and then seek third party counsel. Doesn't happen, does it? Like just put yourself in his shoes for a minute. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate, but I genuinely believe if you know the ball's plugged, you can see the ball. Like, okay, it looks thick on camera, the rough, but you can see the ball. You can get down. You get a first hand impression of whether or not it's plugged or not.
It's plugged in grass because it's so thick.
Yeah, you get down, you have a look at it. You pick the ball up. So then what do you do?
Well, that's where the definition of plugged comes in, though, actually, Mills. I mean, you laugh at it. It's got to break the surface, hasn't it? It's got to essentially be in the mud for it to be plugged. If it's just sat down deeply in grass, that's not.
But does that make sense, what I'm saying? Like, surely, so I'm all for that. The game has to be self-policed.
Yeah.
The game has to be self-police. So then you go out and you look at it and you believe it's plugged. So you pick the ball up and then you go, right, I'm just going to get a third party on this to sort of almost sort of, rubber stamp it. That was the bit that I think, and the nature of the way he sort of kind of walked up and was like, did you see the ball bounce at all? No, I didn't see it bounce. Okay, we must be plugged then. Right. Okay, let's pick the ball up. Let's have a little look. Squatted over the ball. And editing, well, it's not even editing, but it's just the nature of watching it on camera. He's hunched over the ball for an extended period of time, and then eventually decides I'm going to call someone in for it. He's just got, and I in my head, and this is why I think a lot of amateur golfers in golf clubs around the UK can probably identify to it. People are all different, and you get different characters at golf clubs. But in my head, I can't remove the scenario at the Bahamas. I don't buy that the guy who we've just said on here has probably got the best short game on the PGA Tour right now. The fact that he can win from being 63rd, whatever, in greens in reg for the week. How he can't tell that when he's in a bunker that there's no feedback from dragging a club back and taking sand with it. And I don't buy that. That happened. He didn't know he'd moved sand behind the ball in the Bahamas, and therefore, by extension, he's lost trust then from the viewership, I think, when he's in this scenario. So I think it's easy to be like, yeah, okay, just call it in isolation, but the world doesn't work like that.
But I think what clouded the optics for me further was I watched it live and I saw it happen and I was like, ooh, seems very questionable. And I watched it live, and that was on the 10th hole. Then he got to the 12th. I don't know, did you boys watch it live or did you watch it on catch up?
I didn't catch all of it, no. So I wouldn't. So
he got to the 12th on the same round. This was the third round, I think it was. And Beamer's covering it from on Sky Sports, and he gets a drop from a sprinkler on the 12th, which is it's literally 2 holes later. And Rich Beam's going, "This is funny." Like the stance he's taking to say that sprinkler is in. He's like, no one chips like that. Like, that is so far beyond how you would stand to chip a ball. And he's like with a super wide stance, and he's sprinkler's in the way, gets a free drop from the sprinkler head, and then he stands with his 2 feet together and chips it to 2 feet. And Rich Beam was going on and on, but he's like, this is just, I wouldn't be taking it. That just seems a bit. And granted, that's just an opinion of someone who's around this, because he is on site, isn't he? But I mean, it doesn't add up to a good picture, does it? It doesn't draw a great picture.
And I think Patrick Reed is going to be the villain in the golf world for quite a long time. I mean, he's pretty much, you could almost make the argument that he's sort of set out his stall as being the villain, apart from 1 week a year where he's Mr. America. And even then, I can't imagine loads of American Ryder Cup loads of American Ryder Cup fans take pleasure in him. Being on their team, other than the fact he delivers points. I just think, it's probably a sort of tired analogy to draw, but Seve in particular, but maybe also figures like Gary Player have been known for playing fast and loose with the rules of golf. What's that famous story that some tour pro tells about well, no, that's the Gary Player one, which is even more tenuous. But there's a, I think, is it Frank Nobillo or someone like that, who talks about playing with Seve, and they both hit their balls in the woods, and they're, there are 2 balls lying close to one another, and Frank Nobillo goes up to it and says, "Oh, this is my ball, Seve. Can I get a drop here?" He says, "No." "Can I get a drop this way?" "No." "What about taking relief under this ground?" He's like, "No, you can't do that." He's like, "Good. Well, it's your ball." So, that's the reputation that Seve Ballesteros had, as he was going to try and get every advantage he could. And he maybe figured out that was part of golf. It was an intellectual challenge just as much as it's a physical one. So yeah, look, Reed is probably always going to be hated by golf fans. But I can't see in this instance how he would have been deserving of a penalty.
I think there's a need to optimize what, particularly given the fine margins that separate winners and losers in the sport. And it's not nice, but the reality is you've got to understand how to use the rules of game. Best example, Jordan Spieth, Rory Birkdale, when he found that ball in the dunes, he used the rules, he fully optimized them to allow him to give himself the best chance of making a 5 on that hole. Ask a question. When the rules officiator comes over, who hasn't, bear in mind, he hasn't seen where the ball is because it's in hand at this point by the time he's over there, and kind of to use my analogy, rubber stamps Reed on the scenario. How he can do that is beyond me. Have the players sort of almost transcended the ethics of the game and the professional level? Do you think the guys out there are frightened to call it? Do you think, in the interest of protecting the integrity of the game and the marketing and the image, like these guys are?
I don't know if the referees are willing to be bullied or pushed around, but I don't believe any professional would call another professional. I don't think players would call players on tour. I don't think that would happen. Do you know, like the way that we would do it in a medal?
That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm saying, have we got to a point where the governing bodies around them, are they giving them a free pass? Because I think it's back to the pace of play thing. Like, you know, one player gets called on pace of play, another one doesn't. And I see a different, I think players at a certain level
are treated differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors in terms of the briefs that these officials get. I can't imagine it's something as obvious as if a player is ranked inside the world top 50, give them some more leeway. But it has to play into the kind of the monologue or the thought process that's going through a ref's mind when he's like, okay, well, he's already picked up this ball and he's telling me that it was plugged. You know, if I say, well, I haven't seen it, you've already picked up the ball, and this guy's 2 shots in the lead at this point, I could have a material effect on the outcome of this tournament. That's a heavy burden for a referee to shoulder in the moment when they could. I mean, you just can't, like, it's probably a good thing, but you can't really think of many instances in the game of golf where a player's got on the wrong side of a rule or a decision and been taken out of the tournament. I mean, Mark Rowe in the Open, when he signed for the wrong score, or Ian Woosnam where he kept 4 clubs in the bag, like those are almost kind of infamous isolated incidents. And why would you want to detract from the main spectacle of watching these players go out and win these events?
I disagree with you completely, because I think you say the referee doesn't want to have a material effect on the outcome. By not saying anything, he has a material effect on the outcome.
But but I'm saying it's a fringe decision, isn't it? It's a close decision. It's not, if they see something that's palpably wrong, they'll be like, well, yeah, of course the rules are the rules. But he's saying, well, you know, there are analysts there. I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of the ref. If he's like, well, they've got this on video, there's no murmurings or feedback that I can derive from a crowd being out here who are all checking this on their phones. I don't have the benefit of video evidence. There's no close-ups of this. There's no way that I'm actually going to be able to kind of challenge Reed's account. Sometimes you have to just make a call based on the evidence you have there available, don't you? And if he says, right, well, you've already picked the ball up, actually the correct procedure was to call me over, then for the 2 of us to decide whether it's plugged, and then I'll approve your drop. Well, that's a huge responsibility for a referee to take on. Yeah, it's fine if the guy's picked this ball up and thrown it 30 yards because it's obvious for everyone to see that the guy's breached the rules. But when you're talking about breaches that aren't easily or can be argued each way, why would you, as a referee, would you want to get in the middle of a shitstorm like that?
Because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, but it's not obvious though, is it, that it's in that situation? You said it yourself. You said it yourself there, didn't you?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? It reminds me of I think we've done the Patrick.
Yeah, we've talked it to death, hasn't we?
But it reminds me of a story of Commander in Cheat. If you don't know whether you guys have read that, but there's an anecdote in Commander in Cheat where these 2 guys hit the ball into the woods, or one of the guys hits the ball into the woods, and the 2 guys go to look for it, and they look for it for 5 minutes, don't find the ball. So the one guy returns to his ball in the fairway to hit it and says, "Yeah, you lost your ball." And then the guy in the woods goes, "Found my ball." He said, "I know he's fucking cheating because his ball's in my pocket."
Yeah.
Thought that was brilliant.
I think it's a tricky one, and I mean, either way, it's not been a PR success for the tour. It certainly hasn't been a PR success for Reed. Hindsight's 2020 and all that, but you know, to then kind of, you know, post-mortem in the media tent is like, yeah, it's a resounding tick for Reed in the way he handled it. truth is, you can't all sit there and say you handled it in the right way. Like, why
No.
wouldn't you? If there's
No.
any level of doubt, pull the rules guys in. That's exactly what they're there for.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, Sam. Yeah,
Mm.
the fact he's done it that way just looks shocking. But has he just had, as to use your
Brain
famous
fade.
expression, has he had a brain fade and just thought, I've got enough heat on my back at the moment in terms of bending the rules. If there's a close up of that, I better just call a referee over. Yeah, the guy's not got sort of bags of integrity, has he? I mean, we can all agree on that. And
and
golf needs its villains, though. Golf
and
does need its villains.
It's also been amplified by the fact he won. That's part of it, isn't it? If he didn't win, it wouldn't be so much. But what do we think about poor old Victor? I mean, he was in it for a while, wasn't he? And he just he did have a brain fade. He just lost the plot around 13, didn't he?
Well, what, a couple of bogeys coming in?
Well, he
Three bogeys coming in.
One shot behind, I think, on 13, and then had a shot out of the trap, the fairway trap, that for 2 days running, he flew long into the hazard. Then he had a bogey, but it should have been, par at worst, really, from where he was. And Reed just was steadfast, finished it off properly. Like, you get the opinion of Reed, for all of his faults, that when his back is to the wall is when he plays his best golf.
Yeah, 100%.
So gritty, isn't he?
He thrives under that environment, doesn't he?
Yeah.
As soon as he feels like he's kind of got people on his case, that's when he brings out the A game.
I don't want to move the discussion. Well, at risk of moving the discussion on and not, giving Torrey Pines the full, or the Farmers Insurance, I should say, the full treatment. Similar in a way to maybe Brooks Koepka, who has also made headlines this week because I think it's the first time in his professional career that he's missed 3 consecutive cuts.
Yeah, I mean, you're more of a
He's quite chippy though, isn't he, as a player, and does well when he feels like he's got.
He likes a bit of controversy, like you say. He likes to point to sort of prove a point, to use your expression. But you follow the swing stuff in a lot of detail, and the coach and the stuff that they're working on, and obviously the nature of an injury. Has he fully recovered from everything that he went through? Do you think is this kind of like, is he in the wilderness now with his swing? What you're kind of much more plugged into this, I think, Bruce.
Is this the knee thing? Is this Koepka's knee
was
operation?
Was it a wrist or a knee or something? He's injured.
Both. Yeah, I've not followed it as closely as I perhaps normally would. I think, though, the impression I get is he feels like he's fully fit, really, but he's just not. Yeah, he's just. He
looks like a shadow of his former self, though, doesn't he? Really. Like, I remember when. I remember Beth Page. He took it to pieces, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah.
And around that era, it was like, this guy's literally unstoppable. You could see him. Yeah. You could see him winning every single time he teed it up.
Should have won the Masters, or was in a great spot to win the Masters when Tiger ended up winning. Yeah, as you say, trounced the field at Bethpage, and then got off to a frighteningly good start when he was hunting down Gary Woodland in the US Open, and nearly got it done there as well. But now you're just like, where is it?
Perhaps Koepka's just up in his game. Like he's always been that guy who doesn't really give a fuck about normal events. Perhaps he's just giving less fucks. He's like, I don't even care about making a cut now. He
just wants to play in major tournaments. Just be like, I just don't even care. Like,
just literally couldn't give a ding dong about Bernie. I just want to win majors.
Strange. Yeah. One thing I will say, again, not our style, but I feel like it'd be remiss not to talk about commentary. I watching last night, I think the marquee event in the UK was clearly the Dubai Desert Classic, which is great because I think it's a really good event for the European Tour, and therefore the shift pattern seemed to switch slightly in terms of who was manning the coverage. That meant that Sky Sports were widely exposed, I thought, at Torrey Pines. It was, it was like taking a knife to a gunfight, really. They just weren't equipped for the task.
Explain.
Well, no, we should give the listeners a bit of context, shouldn't we? I mean, we got a little cookie jar WhatsApp group, and just getting the message in from Sam saying, bloody hell, the Sky Sports B team's covering this one. did make me chuckle. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's just some
it's not a personal
takes,
dig, but like Rob Lee and Simon Holmes, they're just that. I think they're just not in tune with what's going on, are they? They're talking about all sorts of random stuff. They're not on point with the knowledge. I mean, Christ, I'm not saying I'd do any better, but then I'm not drawing a salary from it. So
Simon Holmes seems
say,
switched on with the swing. Like when they ask him a question about like a pointed question, like what's going on in the swing, he's very articulate about what's going on. I mean, Bruce is now going to tell me that I'm just being had the wool pulled over my eyes, but he does seem very articulate when they probe him on swing matters.
Yeah, I think he is a highly regarded coach. But yeah, sometimes it just, for want of a better expression, it hits the ear wrong, doesn't it? Where so I think he was talking about Matt Wolff. He was like, yeah, because perhaps, and again, this is where it's just sort of armchair, uninformed chat, I think, from Rob Lee, where he's like, oh, yeah, Wolf, Morikawa, Hovland, all young bucks and all swing the club fairly similarly. It's like, well, they don't really, but I kind of get what you're trying to say. And Simon Holmes is like, yeah, well, I was based out in Florida a few months ago and I was watching Matt Wolff hit balls and barely took any divots. But then I just looked at the ground next to him and he tore up a right mess with his feet. And you're just like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like he used the ground in an interesting way, but that just sounds clumsy.
It was just conjecture, wasn't it? Like Rob Lee was talking about Rahm and I think he was like, just literally gone through the turn. And he was sort of saying, he's just changed his equipment provider. He used to have 14 clubs with, his other provider. And, now he's sort of taking it with his new company. I was like, okay, fair. Maybe he doesn't know it was tailor-made and maybe it was just linked for the details. But then then just going on and saying, I really fancy him just to explode on this back nine, don't you? Yeah, I really think he is just going to absolutely. And it's just it's flat out conjecture that, I would, if we assembled a squad in the clubhouse and watched it together, that's the kind of tripe that I would expect to be trotted out in the bar, because that's the nature of being an uninformed, golf viewer that we all are.
It's almost
group paid to,
Yeah, it's almost groupthink conjecture. I mean, the classic exchange is like, I think, where they're talking about Hovland and his ability to, get it across the line when he's under pressure. And Simon Holmes is like, yeah, well, a few weeks ago when he won his second PGA Tour event, I think he was 2 behind. Was he two behind or three? Was it 3 behind, Rob? Yeah, I think he was 3 behind. No, he's two behind, and then he made 3 birdies coming in, didn't he? And it's just like, look it up. Like, literally, just
probably
look
got a producer in his ear anyway. He could just produce. Yeah. You can imagine the producer.
Maybe we're giving him a hard time. Maybe we're giving him a hard time. I just sit there and think, sometimes there's some good eggs and not bad people, but you can't help but feel like maybe they were just pinned into an event that they weren't really. And if you're covering the European Tour week in, week out, you're probably not used to calling the shots on Matt Wolff or the guys who don't leave the US.
The bit that got me, and I think I had a rant on our WhatsApp group, was when Andrew Coulthard lamented the fact that he got the call up for the Torrey Pines and was really excited, but then was gutted he had to do it from the studio. And I thought, from a guy who's taken very little employment through this pandemic, it's hard for me to feel your pain here, because you're getting paid to sit there and talk about golf, and I haven't had paid work in about a year. Know your audience, pal.
Quick question then. So, ignoring the Saudi thing, Phoenix Waste Management this weekend. 1, will it still be a success without fans? Thrives on that. 2, Ricky Fowler. Actually, can he find a little bit of form? It's a place he's done well at.
Yeah,
I think that the guy that's done the best there in the last few years is Hideki, isn't it? Didn't he win it back to back a couple of years back?
Oh, hello. We could be headed for a Rob Lee moment here.
I was going to say, this is where I need Simon Holmes to come in and provide some groupthink conjecture.
I'm pretty sure Hideki won it back to back in 2017.
I know Ricky's got an obscenely good run. That tournament runs on that. Is it the 16th hole, the par 3?
Yeah, the par 3.
And I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, won't it? You got to fancy one of the young guns for that, I think.
Do you think they'll still set up the stadium, or do you think they'll just have like an
mate, that would look utterly garbage, wouldn't it? if they just set up a
That's
stadium.
scary
with no
though.
one
A
in it.
year ago, people were like
I don't
going
know.
nuts.
Would they play some music maybe if someone gets a hole in one or
2016, 2017, back to back Waste Management.
the
That's
sign of a
not bad
great
though.
the sign of a great podcaster. The sign of a great podcaster looks it up after he's thrown it out there and just confirms sort of 2 minutes later. Yeah.
And by the way, the first year Fowler was runner up to Hideki, but Fowler, yeah, he does well at Phoenix. He likes it there.
Quick nod to what we've got coming out this week as well before we wrap up.
Oh yeah, some pods loaded in the chamber, haven't we?
Yeah, some great ones actually. Some cool things. Obviously, with lockdown, being able to sort of just focus our time on some guests and some good things lined up. So, me and Bruce had a good 2 hours with Ronan Rafferty, R squared. That was a joy, wasn't it?
Oh, that was hilarious. Just some absolutely incredible war stories in there, and he's just a brilliant storyteller, isn't he, Ronan? So yeah,
Had me in stitches.
That flew by. I mean, I still can't believe we were chatting for well over 2 hours. But that's a good one, I think.
Yeah, it's a quality podcast.
So we got that coming out later this week, and obviously we got Kill Spindy locked and loaded. And it would be remiss not to again just a big news of sort of congratulations to Cleve Hill on the news there last week. We were absolutely thrilled to bits when that all happened. So and thank you for everyone's kind of engagement and messages and everything. I think the positive sentiment was off the charts last week. So that was a pretty nice end to the week.
And a few days ago, we had our big delivery.
We bought an obscene amount, didn't we?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen 10,000 tea pegs? I mean, it's quite a large box. So we've had some tea pegs arrive that we are possibly looking at pushing out on the website in case anyone's interested. But we've got our tea pegs.
I know Sam's steep, but he's not steep enough to get through 10,000 tea pegs on his own.
No, but hang on, we've been using these things for a while, haven't we? We've actually had them up discreetly on the website. We haven't. We've sold quite a few, but we've not really advertised it to anyone.
We don't like naked commercialism.
Well, we just doubled down on a proper order. So having used them for the benefit of for the best part of 6 months now, I will testify to the fact these things are almost unbreakable. They are
asterisks.
Asterisk, these things will break eventually, but they are crazy good. So we're going to be sticking those up on the website, and they come in 2 flavors. You can get double chocolate chip and you can get pick and mix. So seriously, Bruce, that's what we've got to call them.
I wanted to call them cookie dough, but
no, the pick and mix, there's too many colors. It's more like a pick and mix to me, but
okay.
So yeah, packs of 50, $9.99 UK shipping only, because we are extremely conscious of the environment we're in, and we're not sending those things flying all over the world.
Especially since they've already come from America.
Exactly.
This is just going into the toilet, isn't it? This is like Aon risk reward over here.
True.
Right, let's leave it on that then. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure, as always, to chat to you guys. And we will drop our Ronin pod later on in the week. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Watch this.